three really handsome people. And me. You were expecting a joke, weren't you, Artosis? But you didn't get it.
I thought for sure.
You thought. See,
like,
I keep you.
I think it's
I keep you on your toes. We're not live, are we, Cobra?
I think we're live.
We're live on the show? Oh, okay. So Cobra's going to do some stuff in the background. Sorry for the couple minutes of delay here, guys. And you are literally looking at the ugliest show ever. But it's okay.
I gotta give it to you, man. When you said you were gonna put this show together, I didn't know it would look this beautiful. Oh my god, I'm looking at this on the stream.
See,
wow.
Here's the thing. I think so many other shows have their pretty pictures and their information and their Twitters. This is a show about people. You know what I mean? Our Toast is a show about people. Yeah. So, anyways, that aside,
I feel like it's good for us as well with StarCraft 1. We got the macro Terrans up top, we got the dirty Protoss in the middle, and then the guy who runs lurkers up your ramp down at the bottom, very small. So, I mean, this is working for me.
Designed that way.
Since when were you a macro Terran?
Dan is only it. Well, it depends on what you call a macro Terran. Is that someone that has a lot of money, or is it someone that spends a lot of money? I don't know.
But let me learn about that. Jeff, just saving your money up for Ultras Lake. I'm like, what if I do that? They'll think I'm dead and I still make units.
All right, Dan. Let me do the professional thing. Look. Let me be the host here for a second. Hello and welcome, everyone. The show is just called The Show because it doesn't even need a name, which is really appropriate right now for how ugly the show is as well. But we are four awesome people here. You're going to be the host, Jeff and Control Robinson. Top right, I believe it is Dan Artosis Stemkowski. And we have Greg Idra Fields. And Tyler Noni Washliewski.
That's perfect.
Washielski? Is it like that?
I go with Washliewski, but the polls will not be pleased with that either. We'll just go with that.
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is going to be a 2-hour show. The chat is or will be in sub-only mode, and that's in part to try and keep it spoiler-free from Game of Thrones. And also, of course, to just bring in as much dirty money as humanly possible is the idea behind that. But the first hour is going to be a bit structured. We're going to talk about stuff, which of course just means Artosis is going to take us and derail us, and we're going to talk about nothing for an hour. And then the second hour is I'm going to pull questions either from us or from the chat, and we're just going to Q&A it a little bit. But I think we're going to start off with a little bit of an introduction as well. I think you know where a lot of these guys are from.
You can't die from cock, Jeff.
And that's something that's going to get muted here in a minute, don't worry. If Cobra could do that right away, he's my right-hand man in the computer. Anyways, let's start off with introductions. So let's do the easy ones first and save the Magic Dragon for last. Artosis, you've been all over the place. What are you up to, man? What are you doing? You just got home from vacation, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Artosis. If they're watching your stream, they definitely know me, right? Mm-hmm. So... I got nothing to say, man.
Yeah?
I'm me. You don't watch StarCraft streams and not know who Artosis is. How the fuck would that happen?
That's true. I guess with your introduction, that I would just say you just got home from vacation, but you're going to be cranking out a lot of the streams, I guess, with Brood War Remastered, correct? Yeah,
I'm super excited. The launch event was like the most fun thing I've done in forever, and I forgot how fun StarCraft 1 is. Still love StarCraft 2, but like, oh my god, it feels good.
Yes.
To try to not bank 2,000 minerals in StarCraft 2. Oh my god, it feels so good. I'm just enjoying it really a lot, and I will be streaming a lot later today even.
Okay. I think that'll be one of the first places we go to with questions too, because I like the idea of like what makes Brood War fun and exciting and interesting. But we'll get to that in a second. Tyler, we've seen a little bit of you. You stopped by that aforementioned launch event, and of course you've been around, but what's new with you? What are you up to?
So I'm just kind of hovering around the scene. I can't really say I've got like anything in the pipeline, but I just got back from a bachelor party trip in Las Vegas, so excuse me if I'm look a little tired or seem a little tired, but I'm still in recovery.
Passion, man. That's what I hear. I hear someone destroyed themselves, traveled, and continued to destroy themselves, and still showed up for a show. I'm like, that's the groundwork for it.
You can't die from cock, Jeff.
That's all the old boys got where they are.
Yeah, of course, through that power. Cool. And then last but not least, and Greg, you're going to have to talk a lot about this one because it's a little bit selfish for me because the longer your answer and the more detail you go into means the less that people ask me goddamn questions about what you're up to and if you're alive or not. So you've been away from the scene for a few years. As much as you're comfortable with, and
Hey, you
whatever you want
can't
to
die
say,
from
what have you been up
cock,
to? What are you doing?
Well, I actually just got back from a vacation too, so I guess that's all three of us. And my next semester of school starts tomorrow morning, so that's
Jesus.
fun. But yeah. But no, I just went back to school. I played Heroes of the Storm for a little bit, so that's probably the last thing that people in the scene like remember of me. And during that, I was going back to a community college to try and figure out what I wanted to do. And I had always planned on going into physics when I was younger. I just didn't know if it was something I was still interested in.
So that's what
Turned
you're
out-
studying is physics, or
Hmm?
what are you studying then? I guess I get asked that too.
physics. Yeah. You don't really specialize in undergrad, but I'm headed towards condensed matter, probably condensed matter theory in graduate school for people who know what that is. So yeah, I've really just spent the last 2-3 years studying. I still watch Dota a good amount, and every once in a while people start tweeting about like some big Starcraft event or whatever, and I'll tune into that. But really haven't had much at all to do with gaming for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a few questions too, because again, this is we haven't heard from you in a while, and I think a lot of people want to know. But like, I think one of the interesting things about you, Greg, that I think is different from almost everyone else is, and you can tell me if you think this is wrong, but I feel like you were like a non-gamer that found yourself very good at a game and was professional. So like, are you even playing any other games at all? Are you doing anything like that? Not really, right?
No, I haven't owned a functioning desktop in like 2 years now. So.
Oh my god! Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I didn't know that.
I was just a really competitive person, and StarCraft happened to be the competition that stuck. And now, I don't know, I was kind of an angry competitor, so I don't know how healthy it is. So I kind of don't compete anymore. I think weightlifting kind of filled that role for me. But no, StarCraft was just a way to beat people, and that was most of it.
I think you're fulfilling so many fanfics with that response right there, where you're just like, all I want to do is destroy people, and they're like, oh my god.
I had
Starcraft
it
is
right
just a
all
vehicle.
along.
Well, very cool. I mean, so let's get this out of the way too. I already know the answer, but I'm doing that, professional hosting. Like, what are you gonna say about this, Greg? But like, everyone's asking, do you have any interest at all in playing StarCraft Remastered? Do you have time to play? Do you want to? What do you think of that?
Honestly, I'd kind of like to. I watched almost all of the the event. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
I watched almost all of it, and it was really fun to watch, and especially hear all you guys talk about all the stuff we did, 10 years ago. And I would love to play, but there's just no way I can actually put enough time into it to not hate myself while playing. So probably not.
So it's a time issue then, and you're still in your undergrad, right? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I either graduate in 2 or 3 semesters, depending on what I want to do.
And then is the game plan probably to go into masters, you think, or doctorate, or what are you aiming for after that?
Yeah, a PhD. A master's in physics is, well, I mean, you can do a lot with it, but you can't do physics unless you actually get a PhD, basically. So, yeah.
Dr. Greg Fields.
No one actually calls themselves doctor if they get a PhD in physics.
You have to, though, okay? Please. Got to be the first. All right, well, cool. Thank you, guys, and we'll get more into detail on this kind of stuff as well, but in this first hour, I want to talk a little bit about stuff, and I like the idea, too, of going from, talking about Brood War Remastered and how it came back, because this is like a huge thing that we all were a part of, but if you guys have questions, too, by the way, Dan, Tyler, Greg, if you anything, please let me know, because this is the part of the show where I'm just going to bullshit the f*** out of it for a little while, and then we're going to pull questions in the second hour, but I guess I kind of want to start off by saying, like, with Remastered coming back, and well, let me ask you this, Tyler. Have you been playing any games at all? I mean, some people, I've heard whisperings of like, I saw Noni on some name that I know he played on in the past. But are you actually playing yet, or have you been giving it not a look yet?
I haven't played a lot. I've played maybe like 20 games, so I don't think anyone's really actually spotted me. I'm sure a lot of people are using some of my aliases, but it's probably not me. I haven't played StarCraft 2 in a while, and I dabble in like other games really casually, but nothing in particular.
Well, let's start there then. I think actually with that answer, I kind of find something interesting. But like, is it fair to say across the board that we all would say, and I'm not, this is not going to turn into a hate on StarCraft 2 show, nothing like that, but like, do we all find Brood War to be the superior game? We think it was like an accidental, almost perfect game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Not for me personally. Like,
you think StarCraft 2 is better?
I love both of the games, and I can't really choose one. I feel like they're like children in that way, right? Like, I have 2 games and 3 children and 2 dogs, right? And I don't love anything more than the other thing. It's just like they're so
Do you love your
drastically
dogs as much as your children?
No, these
Yeah,
are 3
fair.
different categories, right? It goes Starcrafts, children, dogs.
Oh, okay.
But
You
no,
love
the
StarCraft
games-
more than your children. I got you. All right.
the games are like really different. It kind of matters what I want to do. Like I really enjoy StarCraft 2. It's like more frustrating in a lot of ways, but just like the strategic aspects of it. It's almost like StarCraft 2 is what I wanted StarCraft 1 to be. And actually this, like, I feel like Greg and Noni didn't like StarCraft 2 very much compared to StarCraft 1. Tyler, I'm not 100% sure on you, but I think that's the case. And then like I think Jeff and I actually liked StarCraft 2 really quite a bit and still continue to. And I actually was thinking about this while I was peeing, and I came up with like these 2 guys. Yeah, no. These 2 guys are like very mechanical players, right? And that's what StarCraft 1 is. And Jeff, you and I were always more cognitive, not to say that we weren't mechanical. Well, I mean, to be fair, you weren't very mechanical, but
No. Oh shit.
you know,
Seriously.
we were more cognitive players. So I think that StarCraft 2 fit our styles a lot more, and that might be part of the reason why we actually really like the game, because we like more strategic type stuff, I guess.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I always felt like that was kind of the flaw because, yeah, it's more strategically oriented, but it's a strategy game with really limited information. So, like, if you have a very difficult time figuring out what your opponents are doing, then if it comes down to strategy, then it's basically all, well, a lot of mind games and luck. And that was always my biggest complaint about it. It's not like chess where, you know, you have perfect information. So it's actually just outsmarting your opponent or seeing further into the game than your opponent. A lot of it comes down to what you can find out and what you can hide from each other. And there's a skill to that too, but I just never found it nearly as satisfying. Whereas with Brood War, you still have that element, but it's just so incredibly hard that there was always room to play better than your opponent and make up for it, even if you lost the battle of information or luck or guessing.
What do you think, Tyler?
I really liked. I think I'm closer to Artosis actually in kind of liking both the games pretty close to equally. I think for me personally, when StarCraft 2 first came out, like we had TSL2, and that was kind of like my peak as a Brood War player in a way, even though, I mean, you kind of say the Courage tournament in my time in Korea was the peak, but I feel like getting the TSL2 victory was like the signature championship I needed to like cement my legacy. So I think I kind of had like a post victory like slump where like I wasn't hungry to be really competitive like after I had that accomplishment. And then StarCraft 2 like beta was like immediately after TSL2, or actually the week of the finals I think is when like the beta started, and I still had to keep practicing for TSL2. And then I won it, and then I was like riding that high, and I was also going to school at that time. And then when StarCraft 2, everyone started playing it, a lot of my most where I had the most competitive advantage, I think, especially over other foreigners, it disappeared between Brood War and StarCraft 2. Like my mechanics, like Artosis was saying. And so I couldn't really cruise to being at the top of the scene at StarCraft 2, and I didn't have like the hunger to like figure the game out like a lot of other people did. And so my transition was just really bad. But I think like over the long term, I've really enjoyed StarCraft 2. I just never really practiced hard enough to get good at it. But I really like a lot of the mechanics, especially Legacy of the Void. And I think one other point that came to my mind was like when we look at Brood War, we have this like the whole history of it, and we have like for me, I always think of BC's Revolution in 2007 as like that's like the defining moment of Brood War for me, that like somebody could figure something like that out after the game had already been so figured out up to that point
For 9
and
years
revolutionize a matchup. And like, but in between those revolutions that each of the like bourgeois, granted us plebs, there were like long stretches of kind of stale play. And the only thing Brood War really had going for it was that it was so hard mechanically that even when strategy was a little more stale, you could always know immediately, like, I could have done that better mechanically.
Mm.
And StarCraft 2 also had all this staleness, but it didn't have that immediacy of, like, here's where my mechanics were horrible and I could have won that game, all strategy aside. And so, I don't know. I feel like it's you have to be really careful when you analyze, like, which game is better and, you know, how severe their problems each were.
I had an interesting, and you guys kind of jogged my memory on this, but I had a really interesting realization. I was watching, I think it was Effort and then Killer. It's so cool that they're streaming, by the way, but that's something we didn't have back in the day. Like,
oh god,
when you heard about them playing, I mean, Greg got to experience, you got to experience it, Courage, a little bit. When you saw them in person, sure, you could kind of see that, but I had this moment where I watched Effort and Killer play. These are two Zerg players, I guess, for the audience that doesn't know. They're close to the top tier. I mean, Effort is certainly, Killer's probably way up there. Where I was like, I will never be that fast. I will never even be close to mechanically half as good as those guys. And it's so different from Brood War to StarCraft 2, because in StarCraft 2, I watched Flash, I watched the best of the best play, and I look at their play and I go, yeah, they're faster than me, but it didn't have the same intimidation factor or, like, unobtainable ability. I was like, I could keep up with them. I could do stuff that the game will allow me to keep up with them. Whereas in Brood War, and I think, you know, seeing your guys' faces, I remember too, Greg when he was in his WC USA winning form, and Tyler when you were in that TSL2 era, I played games against you guys, and I was like, well, nope, you know, like, there's 0% chance. You know, like, the one game I took off of Greg in that USA, I was just telling the story, Greg, it's one of the best ever, so I gotta tell it again. But,
oh, that was great.
It was a 4-pool Spinecrawler rush on the map that had the little patch of flames in front of it.
Was it Coliseum?
Coliseum?
Yeah.
But players can hit a caliber in that game where I go, I was good in my time, but I will never, ever be that good. And it's like a funny turning point, because I think for a lot of people, that's a huge turn-off where they're like, well, no, fuck it, I'm not playing a game like that, because if I can never get there, then what's the point? But for a lot of other people, and I almost wonder if it's like the era we were in, I revel in that. I was excited to see Greg go 1-2 against Stork at IEF or whatever it was, and Tyler to take down TSL and give those guys a run for money. Like, Brood War has this weird, it's so hard it's good category, whereas StarCraft 2 for me never did that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying it's so different. You guys have a similar experience, or?
Yeah, I always felt like it was inspiring to see that. Like, even if you're not sure if you can actually attain that level yourself, just the fact that there is so much room to grow always, and the possibility to be that much better than everyone else. Like, the fact that there could be flashes and ooves and J-Donks and whatnot, that was what, like, inspired me to keep practicing more and try and be like that.
I want to ask you about that too, because Greg, there was definitely a gigantic transformation almost. Like, you're always pretty good. But I remember even the first year or two you were in Korea, you came back and you actually, you know, you lost some series, and I think that was like
there's a huge settling in period going to Korea, like before it actually kicks in and makes you better.
What was that like though? When did you realize that it had actually manifested into something different? Because like I said, there was a 1-year period where you were very good but beatable. Then the next year you were the best in the scene, except for maybe Tyler and a couple other people.
I mean, it was very gradual moving up the ranks in CJ, and I never got all that high anyway, but you go from just getting destroyed by everyone to holding your own against the B-teamers, that kind of thing. But that's very gradual, so it's not like there was ever a, wow, I've made it moment in that. And I, you know, playing against players like that day in and day out kind of wears on your self-confidence. Yeah. So even though I knew I was improving, I didn't feel that amazing until it actually turned into results. I had a year where pretty much any foreign tournament, except TSL2, for most foreign tournaments I entered, I was a pretty solid favorite, and I won pretty easily, even with, you know, whatever obstacles there were. So yeah, it wasn't really until like it actually turned into results. And it was hard to argue with.
And were your mechanics improving literally just a product of grinding out forever games against them?
Oh yeah, that's the only way to do it. I mean, every once in a while you'll like have a revelation, but by the time you're competitive enough to go to Korea, I think those are mostly past. Like, the biggest change I remember was still back in the USA, and just realizing how you use the F keys. Like, that was the biggest single change in mechanics I ever remember. Everything else is just practice and practice and practice.
I still don't use them.
I like this a lot about StarCraft 1. Like, it's always a very direct route to improve. It's like, it's very methodical. Like, you can actually do the hyperbolic time chamber and go into a room alone and play against a computer and get yourself better mechanically, right? And like, Whereas StarCraft 2, it is so strategic that like if you're missing a little shift in the metagame, you're going to get wrecked until you understand that shift. And like this makes it more volatile, like what Greg was saying. Like if you look at StarCraft 1 tournaments, look at the fact that we had Bonjoas and there were best of ones in all the early phases of these tournaments speaks to how much you can differentiate your skill. Whereas in StarCraft 2, you never even hear about a best of one because there is that volatility. You need to bump up to best of 3. You need best of 5s to start earlier in the tournament. The finals should be a best of 7. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I always thought about improving my mechanics in kind of a funny way. Like, you know how you can like research stuff in the game, like speeds all, it's like, you know, you get leg speed or whatever. You research storm, which sometimes I forgot to do. But like I would look at the strats that Koreans could do, and they're like mechanically I couldn't copy those strats. Like it just didn't make sense because mechanically I couldn't do what they could do. And so I almost looked at like developing certain skills as like research that I was unlocking on myself. Like you have unlocked the ability to play Corsair Reaver in PvZ.
They say that in the fighting game community tower. That's actually how they talk about that. They call it.
Oh,
tech.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I would like look at a strat and just see a certain thing. And I always thought like if you could discover like a certain little micro trick that, you know, could turn a strat that doesn't work into a strat that does work, and you're the only one that can do that certain kind of micro, or you just know how to set it up in a particular way. Like Brood War was a game where those things were there to be discovered, and like it was kind of hard to believe that they were there to be discovered, but like programmer after programmer would unlock certain things like 10 years after it come out, and it would just be incredible. I like that.
Well, kind of on that vein, Todd, because you're, again, a really good point, but I actually was talking about this the other day, too. What do you guys think about the concept of StarCraft 2, and Dan, I'd love to hear your kind of argument on this, too, but the concept of StarCraft 2 has almost too much information out there. Like, when you watch a StarCraft 2 game, you know, supply, worker count, army, you know, what's being built, what's being upgraded, you know, APM, time, like, everything is out there. But then even the era that StarCraft 2 came out, replay accessibility, like the amount of tournaments people were playing in, you could watch all of their games. What did that do for you guys, as opposed to like Brood War, where like kind of what Tyler was talking about, when you like leveled up an ability to do a build or a strat, it wasn't because you were inundated with all this information. You had to grind out the games. If you found, do you guys remember the feeling of like, dude, so and so has 20 replays of Jadon from the Icon?
Yeah.
Like people found fucking replays.
Yeah.
Greg was actually a couple times even accused of leaking pro gamer replays from the house. Do you remember that, Greg? That fucking AOL or whatever the hell it was. You know.
Wait, no, that was Rhett that happened to.
Oh,
yeah,
he did it. You were accused. That's what I mean. Like Red actually did do that.
Oh, I don't actually remember being accused. I don't know. Maybe.
I might be making it up. But what do you guys think about that? Like Tyler's talking about leveling up your abilities and like learning things from this game and like pursuing information, whereas StarCraft 2, it's pushed on you.
That's definitely true, but like that's kind of how everything is turning as well. Like looking back at StarCraft 1, this was the first real RTS, and like for instance, those of us sitting here, right? Like we had to like pave forward. There was nobody that we could learn from ever. You couldn't learn except to watch a VOD, and like there'd be pieces of the build that you couldn't steal because they wouldn't be looking at that, or they'd show the crowd, and like so it was incredibly hard to actually learn anything, and especially in English, there was like no information. And actually, this is a really funny time because StarCraft 2, I feel like the foreign scene finally figured out RTS. Like we didn't really know. I look back at the way I thought about StarCraft 1. And I'm like, oh my God, I am a million times smarter now. Yeah. If I had the time to practice like I used to, I feel like I could be 5-6 times better than I ever was. You know, it's just like, because I understand RTS much better now. And a lot of that is this increased information. And now even you look at StarCraft 1, everyone's streaming it all the time. Flash is making tutorials. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Do you know what I would have given for a Flash tutorial? If you got one Flash tutorial back in the day, you would have just won WCG for your country. That's it. It's over. Oh, I got this build. can't lose. But yeah, the amount of information we have out there now is like, you can learn things. These kids, they don't know how easy they have it. Like, the fact that I used to play before fucking replays existed. Do you know how hard it was to figure anything out at that point? You couldn't even rewatch your game after you played it. You just had to try to remember what happened in an hour-long game. It's like, oh yeah, no, the mistake might have been at 8 minutes, but you can only remember the last 20. And it's like, oh, it's kind of crazy. And because I don't want you guys to talk, I want this to be the Artosis show. I got one more thing to say about that. The production tab and stuff, I'm actually, just as kind of an aside, something I'm afraid about with all the observer things that they're putting into StarCraft 1.
Yeah.
StarCraft 1, you watch it, you observe it, you watch commentary of it, it builds a lot of suspense. You don't know what's about to happen. Whereas StarCraft 2, you watch the production tab, and then you instantly analyze every aspect of it. Like, at that moment, you're like, you started Mutas. Okay, so this is what the next 7 minutes looks like. And it's very exciting still. It's a very dynamic game, but StarCraft 1, when you watch it, it's suspense, and StarCraft 2, when you watch it, it's excitement. And both of them have both a little bit, but like, when I see the minerals and the supply in StarCraft 1 and I'm trying to commentate it, you know how hard it is to build up suspense if I'm going to see that you're down 70 supply.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it's like, you can't really tell. There is a question there. So anyways, I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think having the extra information available, like Dan said, that does a lot to take away from the viewer experience, but less so make it easier to learn. I feel like if you can get your hands on a replay, you can figure out what's going on. So the big difference was just the availability of replays. Like, I was a Terran player who played ZVT because the two big things when I started to get into low money maps were there was a Nada replay pack and there was a Black Man replay pack. Yep. So I played Hydra Lurker and I played like Nada for like the first year of my career, and that kind of just formed the rest of my play for the next, however many years. It was just so huge to get your hands on any information at all about how the top players played back then.
And I would say there was a big gap, at least. Well, it was one of the ways that I feel like I formed a gap between myself and like the rest of the foreigners, except for the top ones like Greg. But like I remember watching, I don't know if it was TSL1 or TSL2, but one of the like Peruvian Protoss or something who like DT dropped Terrans all the time.
Dark Edo, maybe? Peruvian, you said?
Yeah. Yeah,
you said DT drop in Peruvian.
Darky,
I think it's Dark Edo.
Yeah, I think Darky maybe. Anyway, he like DT dropped someone good. It might have been Greg. I have no idea. But like, and he won. And I like posted in Team Liquid. I was like props to him for winning. But like, that was the worst build order I've ever seen in my life. And I like went into single player and went against the computer. And I was like, I can do this I can get units out at all the exact same times, but have like another nexus like fully saturated with probes and like just be like way farther ahead. Like, his builder is like so poorly optimized that like it was insane. And that's like something you wouldn't even get close to seeing in StarCraft 2. Like, nobody's build orders are that bad in StarCraft 2. Like, you can't differentiate yourself that much, I think.
I agree with your point, but
one of the big things. That was one of the big things that really brought Stefano to the forefront. He was very, very neurotic about just timing everything out as perfectly as he possibly could. And he got a good amount of efficiency on people until everyone figured it out. I mean,
who was this?
Stefano?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, his Roche timing, CVP, he got that, you would like max 2 minutes earlier than everyone else could. And that was enough time to get in before Colossus range finish or whatever it was. So there was still some element of it, but yeah, Brood War foreigners were just horrible at optimizing their builds.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were. No real defense against that.
There's no arguing.
It's true. We had nothing to learn from. All of us were like, we had out our machetes and we're chopping through the woods. Like, there was nothing there. As you guys say, like, if you got a couple replays, the skill level of whoever had those replays would jump. I remember, what did we get? We got some Sea Shield replays once.
Oh my god.
Media Terrans. And our TVZs, oh man, we got so much better over the course of like a month. It's just like, we tripled in skill in that matchup. But it was so rare that you could get legitimate top pro replays. They were just like safeguarded so heavily.
I
Well,
do
that-
have to say, by the way, Rhett
Yeah.
tweeted that he, in fact, did not leak those replays. So if there's anyone out there, I do not want to besmirk the good name that is Rhett. That's just a rumor. Okay, he was never acquitted, or he was never caught. We still don't know who did that. Sorry, go ahead, Tyler. You were saying something.
I was just gonna say, like, in the absence of all those replays, and we would get VODs, of OSL.
Can you also talk
MSL,
about what we know you did to practice? I know you have a really good point, but can you also tell people what you did on your own with a computer?
Yeah. So that's what I was gonna say.
Okay,
is
good.
like,
Go ahead. Yeah.
You'd get these VODs, and it was kind of just assumed like you can't really figure out the build orders that these guys are using because the VODs just wouldn't display enough information, and like annoyingly, like Dan was saying, like right when you'd want to see something in like the build order, they'd like cut to the crowd for like 10 seconds. And some girl would cover her face, and you're like, God damn it. I'm a serious Starcraft player. I'm trying to learn here. And so it would be like a puzzle that you didn't have all the pieces. Like, I would literally get like all the information I could out of the VOD, like every single concrete thing. And you didn't have the game timer. So like I'd have to, figure out the timings with my own clock. And go into the single player, just against a computer and try to reconstruct these build orders until I got them as perfect as possible. And it's like I would do it, and then I'd be like, oh, well, at like 12 minutes in the game, he had this and this and this, and like I can't do that with the builder I figured out, and so I'd tinker it more and more until like I could recreate it as best as possible. And that's how I just copied. Like I was better at copying. That's why.
For some of you though that don't know what Tyler just said, if that airplane is flying over your head right now, he went into games against the computer and literally placed pylons and gateways by himself for like hours at a time to get it right. Which I'm saying half joking, but he really did that. But that's also the different. What do you guys think? Because this is an awesome segue. I'm such a good host. Jesus Christ. But this segues into like, what about the time of Brood War? Because like Greg sat in a house, like talking about what some of you guys went through to get good at this game. Dan slept in like sweaty, dirty closets with a guy literally named Puerto Rican, and like Greg grinded out 12. Like when people are like, like the old adage, StarCraft players play 12 hours a day or whatever. Greg actually did that, and he was talking about losing to Eastro and CJB teamers for 12 hours at a time. Tyler, you sent yourself to Korea, right? Or did Team Liquid pay for that when you did Courage? I know you won a tournament to get sent some ticket there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I ran a tournament and he won it.
Yeah.
But just like talking about, so the question I'm going to open up to you guys though is just like, what a weird confluence of things that came together to make that possible. Because would like 28 or 29-year-old Greg go to Korea right now and play 12, 15 hours a day, losing most of that? No. Would 45-year-old Dan Artosis sleep in a closet with like sweat and just shit flies flying around to get where he is now? No. Would Tyler do what he did? Would I do what I did? Probably not. But like what it took to become good at Brood War had to happen at that time. I guess this is kind of a hard question, but what do you guys think about it though?
What do you mean?
I know it's a dumb question. I guess I'm talking about like.
No, but you are such a great host. Please.
Well, I mean that's not up for grabs. That's not
I
even
just
a question.
Like, what do you mean that if it had to happen at that? Like because we were younger or something, or?
I think the point is just like you had to sacrifice absolutely everything to make it happen. Basically.
Yeah,
it's not a good question. It's a good statement, though. That's too bad. But go talk about your story, Dan. Is it?
No, I mean, this is just we loved it, and like I don't know. It's hard to put into words. Like some people just loved StarCraft and the competitive aspects of it, and we just gave up absolutely everything for it, and none of us made money doing it. Everyone lost money, and all of us practiced like. The foreign pros from StarCraft 1, I don't think I'll ever respect a group of people more than I respect them because every single person was putting in Korean-like hours while having to do things like go to school and work. And there was never any chance any of us were going to do anything against the Koreans. No matter how hard we wanted it or how hard we worked. It was such a closed door to even go over there. It was insane. Like a few foreigners went over really early, and then there was like a tiny middle group of like a sem, and then
Yeah.
like until forever later, like Draco got himself over there at some point in there around the SM time, right? And then it was like Idra got to go, and then finally I got to go for a different reason and helped Noni and Rhett to get over. But it was like even then it was such like Greg was the only one that could even maintain the team house atmosphere because it was so like the thing is it's not even intelligent. I learned a lot when Noni came over because I remember he came to Easter, right? And I was still living over there too, and he was just like, you guys aren't letting me sleep enough. Here is science that shows that you should get enough sleep so that your brain functions. And people were rejecting this, and they were like giving him such a hard time. And it, like, I mean, the Koreans were the best. They put in the most work and stuff. Well, that's not even true. The foreigners put in fucking sick work too. But they had this team house environment, and just like it fed itself, right? And I don't know. I'm rambling, and I could go on and on and on about it.
You tried to save me, Dan. I appreciate that. You know?
Yeah. I just like you know, I do great transitions. What a host. Oh my God.
I mean, before I went to Korea, I was at that time I was like I was practicing full time. But for me, that was only 5 to 6 hours a day of actual games. Like that's what I found to be about as much as I could handle and for it to still be good. I'd spend more time studying, so like the total amount of time I spent would be more. But like when I went to Korea, my main thing was like I just need better people to play against. I need to see how you guys play because I only see these VODs. So if I see your Protosses every day, I'll learn so much more. And if I just play against better players, it'll raise my skill level. I don't need or want to practice 12 hours a day, which was like literally about double as much as I was playing. I was like, I was willing to try to build up to it, but like it just their, you know, and their culture was like, I went over there because I thought when I got there, I would be living my life to become the best Brood War player I could be. But that's not exactly what it's like to be in a team house because there's like cultural things that trump doing what's actually best for your skill. So you have to kind of like pay your dues and you have to do it their way, even if that's not what's optimal. And so that's a lot of what made it hard for me to like be successful there longer term.
I guess the question that I did a terrible job pretty much asking Greg is just like talking about what it took to get pretty good. And I know you kind of already touched on it, but like sitting in that house and playing the amount of games you did. But can you give like a little bit more about that? Like, were you okay with that? Did you feel good about the 12 hours, or did you know that this wasn't good for you? Or I mean, what were your thoughts about that?
I mean, I went along with it because I was just like a scared little nerd who didn't have a backbone and really wanted to be in Korea playing Starcraft. So like what they said, I did. And I didn't complain about it because complaining about it would reflect badly on you in their eyes. And I just didn't want that. So I went along with it. And it was literally 12 hours a day. And doing 12 hours a day was like the minimum required. And it meant you were one of the lazy ones. Like most people were staying up a couple hours later than me, playing 13, 14 hours, looking at replays. And I don't think they thought that was the right way to do it either. That was the way to get the coaches' good graces. Like they see you doing that, they know you're dedicated. You're more likely to get a shot to play in one of the minor league games or something like that. And then you prove yourself, and that's how you climb the ladder. So a lot of it, was just you put on the show to convince the coaches that you're dedicated. But I mean, there is that work ethic is part of their culture. They believe that's the way to succeed at things. That's the reason to happen. And I mean, obviously it paid off for me in the long run. Would I have been better if I'd been playing, 8, 10 hours? Because I was always a grinder, even while I was still in the U.S. I played as much as I could, and I was getting better more on the back of my execution than the way I thought about the game. So that kind of practice suited me, but I definitely think it was overboard. I think 8, 10 hours a day, live a little bit healthier, learn the language and actually talk to the other players about the way they think about the game, that kind of stuff. I think that would have been a more productive So a balance between Tyler's approach and Korea's approach would have been best, I think.
Was there favoritism? Did they like? I think you were in the house at the same time as Effort, if I remember correctly, and stuff like that. Like, did Effort have to play 12 hours a day?
Because we were set, like there were 2 practice rooms, the B team and the A team room. So I wasn't there, but yeah, everyone played a ton. Because I mean, even if you were like a really, really valuable top tier player, like you don't disrespect your coaches. You don't talk back to the coaches. Like it's just the Korean culture kind of thing. They tell you what to do and you do it. Plus, they thought that was the best way to get better. They thought playing all day was the way to do it. So like they wanted to keep practicing. They wanted to win, and that was the path they saw to winning.
Yeah, the managers and coaches out here for StarCraft 1, like I got the chance to meet, interview, speak with, hang out with just about every single one from the different teams. And I mean, they ran a big range, but I don't think there was a single one that had gone to school for this or actually really looked deeply into this. Every time I spoke to them, I'm like, who do you think's up and coming on your team? And they list the players that practice most. Oh, this kid practices 16 hours a day. And it's like, that would just be the one thing that they would cite as this is the next big thing. And, while the perseverance definitely can help, I mean, it definitely wasn't done correctly. Like, if you just read books on the subject now, you're not actually supposed to practice anything more than 4 to 5 hours a day. It just, like, you lose all quality of practice at that point.
It got to a funny place, too, where it was not even just how much people practice, but it's how young they are while practicing that much, too. 2010 Brood War, and I'm sure it continued, but this is, like, as far back as my memory goes with it. But there was, it'd be like, yeah, I found a 10-year-old that's really good. They're A rank on iCup or whatever, or PGT, and they're also playing 17 hours a day. And it'd be like, that sounds like child labor. That's actually that's an issue. But that was what they looked for, actually. And a lot of those guys got a lot better.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to finish off the first hour, I kind of want to ask a couple questions about like our best memories of Brood War and stuff like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about StarCraft 2 and stuff like that in the second hour. But and I'm going to ask some directed ones too, because these stories need to be told. But Greg, it was a certain WCG when you faced a certain fellow media Terran, and you were playing PvT at the time. Do you remember that match?
Oh yeah. Wait, which one? Because there were 2 bad games in that series.
Exactly.
There was the DT drop game, and then there was the 3-base carrier game on Pixabay. They were both bullshit.
I don't remember the carrier one. What happened there?
I mean, it was my fault. That one was less bullshit and just kind of silly. Like Pixabay, if you got carriers out, you won the game. Like
Greg,
it was
I'm sorry.
over.
What did you say?
What part?
You said it's your fault?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've matured now. It's awesome.
Yeah, look at this. We're all adults now. Isn't that crazy?
No, but
don't worry. There's salt coming. I feel it.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
I forget how exactly it happened, but I had the top left. I was top. I had my third base in the top left, and I think I had the pylon wall off already, but I don't know how it happened. And this was against Dan. I guess we haven't actually said that, but he was the media Terran, and I was PVTing him at WCG like 07 or something.
Which also already shows that you deserve to lose because you're like, oh, I'll use Protoss against Terran because of Simba. No.
Hey, I had practiced it before, and it wasn't like I surprised you guys with it or something. We had been playing it before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a pylon wall off, I think, but he got enough vultures up there to kill it and break in and kill all the probes, because that was one of the big, your probes were all trapped up there. There was no way to get them out if the vultures got in. So he killed all that right before the carriers came out, and then the game just got really hectic, and he was able to win it eventually. And it's the kind of situation where it doesn't look like much, but just from past experience, if you hold that base, you get the carriers out, you just win because the map was bullshit. And so that was really frustrating. And then the other one was, I think I DT dropped him on, what was that? What was that map? It had the 2 really close positions and then the diagonal.
What was that?
Gaia?
Yeah.
Gaia?
Maybe.
I thought it was Python. I thought it was just straight up Python that you did it on.
No, it was the one that had
Gaia was a WCG map, but maybe not that one. I don't know.
Did you DT drop Dan because you thought it was a good strategy, or did you do it because you knew it would piss him off? You could beat him.
Little above?
Yeah.
Well, DT drop can beat anybody. We talk about how even if you screw up in the early game in StarCraft 1, you can come back. The one caveat to that is DT drop. If a DT drop comes and you're not ready for it, the game is over. It doesn't, just like Noni was saying, he can have an extra next stuff. Nope, Darky's still on with the DT drop. You don't have detection, that's it, it's over.
And even if you were ready for the DT drop, at best you ended up only like a little bit behind. So it was a pretty good opening.
It was a good opening.
Do you remember the disconnect, Greg?
Yeah. So like wasn't it like right as I landed the DTs in his completely undefended base?
Yes.
And then the wonderful WCG infrastructure disconnects. And then we replay it for some reason, even though obviously the game was completely over. Then I guess I lost. Did I lose that one or did I lose the
you
other
went DT
one?
drop again and he was ready for it the second time.
No, I feel like the DT drop failed, but then I won a macro game and then I lost the next two or something like that. But either way.
Probably. I mean, you were probably ahead after a failed DT drop anyways, because
That is how it works.
But that's true. I am great. Thank you, Greg. I liked that story. Thanks for bringing that up, Jeff.
Well, like I said, I guess that's a bit selfish because that's one of my favorite memories. But Tyler, what were some of your favorite games? I guess from. I mean, I know winning TSL was big, but were there some other ones, some particular series that you were proud of and excited about?
I don't know if I really had like a standout series. I mean, I guess it's just like the TSL2 series is really what stands out to me the most. You know, the semis against Greg and then the finals against Mondragon. I was just since we were talking about DT drops, I remember game 1 against Greg, and it was on that really heavily favored Protoss map. I forgot what it was called. Andromeda, yeah. And so. But I wasn't sure that I could beat Greg straight up, like, because I think he was still mechanically better than me at that point, and I had to win with strategy. And so I was like, it's a PvT favored map. He won't expect me to do something cheesy, so I'm going to go DT drop. And he, to his credit, because he always played so like standard and conservative, he went for a vulture fucking drop, which I did not expect, and he just got the easiest win. I was like, oh shit! Like now he did that in game 1. He's up 1-0, and like I cannot predict him at all. Like I have no idea what he has planned if he's gonna vulture drop. So I don't know. That was a standout memory to me. But I really don't have like a huge like epic series that really stands out to me.
What about your Arbiter's famous video that you?
That was fun. You know how like. Maybe you guys don't know, but like sometimes when you're like not trying hard at all, like everything can really like start to click. Like, you know, like when you're not focusing that hard and you just kind of relax, and then like your instincts kick in and you play really well. Like I would have those sessions in Brood War, and those were always the greatest because I just feel like it's fun to be relaxed and playing well, because most of the time you're stressed when you're playing StarCraft. So anyway, that was like, I mean, obviously I was playing in a very funny way and in a very funny mood, but like I actually feel like I was executing my Mass Arbiter strat really well, like really well. Like it was fun. It's a great game. Everyone should watch that if you need a Mass Arbiter's build.
It's just on YouTube or something?
Yeah, it's somewhere on YouTube. I'm sure. I don't know how to find it.
You guys can look that up. But what about for you, Greg? Is there any matches that stand out to you that are some of your favorites?
I mean, there were a lot of. It was interesting. I always had really close games against Stork, which stood out a lot because he was just like absolutely incredible. I don't think he ever really reached the same level as StarCraft 2, so people may not respect him as much as they should. Yeah. But he was absolutely incredible. Right. And it just made no sense, but I always felt really good playing against him. And I think I took a game or two off him. I never took a series, but we had really, really close, long macro games, which is what he was known for. So I was always kind of proud of myself after I played him. But one that really stands out was the WCG where I lost to Cole. In the group games, I had lost a silly, cheesy game to that German Terran. He did like mass vultures on Coliseum or something. So I was actually in danger of getting knocked out of the group. And I was playing Advocate, the Russian Terran, who's another guy I had a decent amount of respect for. He's a pretty good player. And we're playing on Destination, and he had me beat really bad early game. He was on like 2 bases, dropping me I guess my opening failed or something. But I was at that point where I was like slumped down in my chair, or holy shit, am I really gonna get knocked out in group stages to this? And then I played my way back into it in like a 40-minute game, and that always stood out as like combination of high pressure and playing really well and really shouldn't have won, that kind of stuff. So that's a totally random game that I'm sure no one else remembers.
No,
but
that's
that
cool,
one always
though.
stuck in my mind.
How did you do in that WCG, actually? Who did you end up losing to?
Top 8. I lost to Cole, and he just went 2-base mute every game, and I responded to it really badly.
He's actually back playing as well, by the way, for a lot of people that...
That's sick. He was the best player who
KOLL.
didn't switch to StarCraft 2, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never did StarCraft 2 at all, right?
I was just talking to Dennis about him, actually. It's funny. Take TV for a lot of the StarCraft fans. And he played for like a week or two on Dennis's German team, and then was like, nope, this game's not for me. And he was never seen again, but now he's playing Brood War, actually. He was an amazing talent.
Yeah, he was.
How far did he make it in TSL 2 as well, by the way? Didn't he make pretty far? He was way up there, I thought.
I don't remember.
He was like, he almost didn't qualify for it, I thought. He was one of those ones who was borderline. I don't remember where he ended up, though.
All right, maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. And then I'm going to come back around. Well, Dan, actually, I mean, you had some Brood War success as well, by the way. I think a lot of people, especially the StarCraft 2 viewers, would be like, what? But yeah, Dan competed, did really well, was a good Terran. What were some of your favorite series, I guess?
I mean, there's a lot of series that I remember like really, really vividly. Like, did you and I play in the U.S. Open Finals, Jeff? That crazy macro game on Python. You remember that?
Oh, I do.
That was definitely one that I remember where like literally we were both maxed for 100 years, and like I was just attack moving 8 groups of Marine Medic around, and like that was pretty crazy. That was
well, we almost mine out the map, and it ends. The game ends, if I remember correctly, with like a defense matrix 1 of 3 Marines killing my final defiler, and I was like, I'm like looking through my bases, and I'm like, because he's just slowly killing the final hatchery. I'm like, I actually don't have anything else, and it was only then that I realized I lost, and yeah, it was epic.
That was a good one, but I think for me the most memorable series, there's actually like one specific series and specifically one game that kind of like changed the course of everything for me in StarCraft. Back in like 2004 is when I made like the big decision, like early in that year, like maybe March or so, 2004. Like I made the decision that I had to go to Korea and like that I had to devote my life to the game, because I'd been playing like a lot for years, doing tournaments, flying around and stuff. But I was like, this is it. Like, this is my life. And that's also the time where I switched over from, well, I mean, before that, I was always like I was very certain that I was smarter than everyone and more talented than everyone. And the thing is, like,
I'm so glad you matured, Greg, because other people, not naming names, but go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, this was like a big turning point this year for me, because previously that, like, everyone was telling me I was really good. Like, I was one of the top Americans for like a super long time. I played really high-end pros quite often and did well, and everyone's like, damn, the Sartosis kid, he's a talent. And I had a couple tournaments where I botched stuff, like 2002 and 2003. I botched a few tournaments that I shouldn't have, but 2004, when I kind of decided that I had to do this, I switched over from just thinking I was talented and smarter than everyone into kind of realizing that, like, okay, hard work is actually the only thing that matters here. And so, like, I quit my job. I was actually training like 16 hours a day or so. Like the foreign pros that were over in Korea, I remember Rekroll was on my friend list, and he'd get on in the morning. I'd be there, be like, hey, what's up? I'm like, just practicing. And then he'd log off and go to bed. Then he'd log on again the next day, and I'd still be there and stuff. And it was just like, I was just literally 16 hours a day. I was like sleeping in shifts, like 3 hours. I was trying that polyphasic sleep and stuff. And it was a crazy year for me. And like my only goal was to make top 3 at WCG USA to go to the World Finals. I was like, I'm putting my life on the line. I'm doing this no matter what. So like I won the big New England qualifier, which was like over 50 people playing. It was the biggest qualifier we ever had in America. I didn't lose a map. And then I won like the first 2 rounds of WCG USA without losing a map. And then I played Fight is Blind, who was quietly really a good Zerg back then. Like, no one remembers Fight is Blind, but he was really quite good. And he was killing me on map 1. And TVZ has always kind of been my weakness. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, I'm going to lose. If I lose this map, it was like Martian Cross, which was even very good for Terran.
Hang on, Dan. For people that don't understand media Terran language, when a Mediateran says a Zerg is very good, what they mean is they beat them, but the series was pretty close. So go ahead, Dan, tell your story.
At least I'm not like Testy and Mondragon that will tell you Ogogo is the greatest player on Earth because we beat him all the time. Okay, so anyways, he was way ahead, and it was a situation I never win from, really. And I was actually on the PCs in the other room, so no one was watching at all. And I was like, I actually had this moment where I was like, I have really put everything into this. Like, I have sacrificed everything. I have played all day, every day. All I want, because I knew if I went to that loser bracket, like if I lost this first game, I felt like I was going to lose the series. If I went to the loser bracket, that was a super stacked year, 2004. So who knows what happens at that point? But like, I just like kind of let everything go. Like you hear about like the flow, people hitting the flow or the zone or whatever it is, and I actually absolutely hit that in that game. Because I'm like, I don't care. I can die after this game. As long as I just put in my absolute best effort. And I came back and fucking trashed him. I dumpster that nerd from there in that game, despite being behind. And then I just crushed him in game 2. And so I qualified for USA Finals. And it was like such an important moment because like I showed myself that I could, work hard towards goals rather than just being born lucky the whole way or something like that. And it really changed like just my mindset in general. And then from then on, I always have been kind of like a workhorse player. Like I've always just been someone that I'm only good if I practice a ton. That's it. Like if I'm not playing a lot, I'm in terrible shape. That's it. And so that was for me that was like maybe the most important and memorable series through my many years.
At the same time, though, every single American Terran player thought they were the most talented player, the best player.
Probably.
That was a prerequisite to playing Terran in America. Was like,
well, it was the hardest race.
I'm like Tyler.
You have to have a really strong ego to survive as Terran.
Spew, Artosis, Hobbs. I was like, yeah, actually, now that I think of all the American Terrans, they all thought they were top shit all the time.
Oh,
yeah,
it's true.
What is some of and this is a little bit of a different question, but it might even take some thinking, or maybe not at all. What was your worst Brood War moment? Like, what is your worst match? The thing that makes you still look back on and don't like, or it doesn't even have to be a match. It could just be something that happened. I don't know.
I can tell you mine right away.
Do it.
Well, one of them. So I was playing a WCG qualifier against our mutual friend Nick Tasteless Plot. And
I know this story, yeah.
the way
You know how happy you're making him right now? Go ahead.
The way that the bracket was, first of all, there was fucking island maps in this shit. Like, I didn't know how to play PvP on the island map, and so like every single time we played on an island map, he would win, and I would win like every other map. And so, anyway, the way that it worked with the double elimination bracket is that like we played each other twice because I went to the lower bracket and I fought my way back to play him again. And the total, if you total all the games that we played together in that tournament, I had a winning record against him. Okay, but he advanced. Because tournament structures are bullshit. Okay, so he won on a few island maps at just the right moment. The other thing is every time he lost, he got to pick the map, and he just kept picking the island map over and over again. So he advanced over me because he could pick the island map every single time and just win the perfect amount of games necessary to advance and like abuse this bracket. And
is that the WCG where he advanced and then commentated, and that inspired him to go to Korea?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at Tyler's little foothold in history.
Yeah.
You propped him up on your shoulder, and you're like, "Go ahead, Nick. Off you go." And you like.
Yeah.
Is that the one though? Is that the one that's the worst?
Yeah, that's a very sore memory that comes to mind because I was like, that's when I was really starting to feel like I was getting good and I wanted to like make a mark, and then to like, there's always something that haven't mastered yet, and like you don't know what it is until you get into a tournament and you lose because that's what you face. And so like that was a lesson too, is like I might be really good, and in a lot of ways I might be better than this guy, but that doesn't mean I can beat him in this series. So it was a learning experience too, but it was also, I was just, you know how we all just got pissed every time we lost.
Yep.
It didn't matter why. If we could think of like somewhat of a reasonable argument to complain about us, you know, about losing, then we would go for it.
There's
All in.
an extra spice here that's going on that people don't realize though, because when they think of tasteless, I think for a lot of people they're like charismatic, handsome, super witty. You know, he talks about being a pro StarCraft player, so he must have been really fucking good. I'm gonna lay it out pretty clear here. Nick is all those things. But when you lost to him in Brood War back in the day, we were putting in and competing like 10 hours a day. Nick was this like free bird, just kind of talented, just really fucking smart, kind of good. But when he beat you, it was almost always the most bullshit way to get beaten by anyone. And he would do it laughing and talking to some other people with like a cigarette in his mouth. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm just smashing this nerd. Hey, how you doing? Can you get me a Coke? All right, what am I doing here? And I'm like losing to him across the table, and I'm like, oh my god. So when Tyler says he was feeling really good and lost to Nick, Nick might have had both legs splayed out on the table with like jean shorts frayed at the fringes and with the cigarette hanging out of his mouth while beating Tyler.
The other thing too was that he like came to that tournament with a posse, and so him and his buddies were just like laughing between all the games, and like, I was just like, oh my god, these fucking guys.
Tyler, meanwhile, is like adjusting his glasses. I'm like, oh, jeez, can never make it to Korea this way. While you guys are thinking, I'll tell mine real quick, because this is not Tyler random reference, but this is pretty good. One of the years I went to the Pan American Championship, and probably the only year where I felt like I was actually really good, I went and I was destroying everyone, and then I played against Hell Ghost PG, a Brazilian player, who was like a matchup picker, but he was just always truly the spirit of Brazil, by the way. And this, again, is something to be lost on so many people. Like, Brazilian gamers, and I know that that's not true because the best CSGO players are like actually top of their field, really good. But back then, all Brazilians were bullshit. If they ever beat you, whatever they were doing, it was off of the logic of you probably wouldn't think I'm doing this thing, but motherfucker, I certainly am doing this thing. And he embodied that and had pretty good mechanics, so he was very frustrating to play against. I was playing so good, and I hit him on Peaks de Baekdu. And it was one of those moments where I'm like crushing him. I have Mutas destroying his probes. He's down to one Nexus. And it was the weirdest, most surreal moment because out of nowhere, 30 speedlots just come running through that goddamn mini choke in the middle and just start hitting my base. And it was the most tiered realization I ever had where like the first one was like, well, that's weird. So I like pull back the Mutas and I'm fighting them. I have some Hydras. Then there was the second realization where I was like, God, they're actually doing a lot of damage. And then there was the third realization where I was like, I'm fucking dying. I'm dying right now. And he fucking beat me with this random counterattack that I never saw coming. And it mentally messed me up so bad that I got bopped forever after that tournament. And I just remember going home like still shaking, like, what happened? Like, I don't. And it was just one of the more disappointing results I ever had. But Dan, what's your
Well, my most disappointing moment, a lot of people have already seen, WCG 2005. There's a video about it.
Oh, Jesus.
To this day, it still hurts me to think about. That was a sick peak for me in 2005. I was in just unfathomably good shape that year.
Who did that video, by the way? Because if people haven't seen that, they need to see that video. That's like a...
Yeah. What do
they search? How do they see that video in chat?
If you just type in WCG 2005,
there you go.
It should come right up, and it has me, Day 9, and Tasteless all in it, and it's like a really important moment in history for USA, and it like really changed the course of my life, kind of like 2004 did. Like I again practiced 16 hours a day that year, but now this was like this weird long continuous stretch of just like non-stop practice all the time, like good work ethic and all that. And I can't even tell you how good shape I was in. Like the USA was almost completely Terrans that year. We had like a couple random Protosses that weren't too good, that could never really touch me. And then we had Day 9, and then a ton of good Terran players.
He's talking about Tasteless. Go ahead.
I was actually thinking about Nero, but yes, Tasteless was there as well. So like my TBT was just ridiculous. Like I had literally the Russian Terrans like Advocate, Android, and X, those guys that everyone remembers as legendary. They would sit there and take turns against me in practice, and I'd go like 7 victories before I'd lose a map against any of them. And like 3 or 4 days before the tournament, I had 7-1 to Yosh in TBT, who ended up getting 2nd place in that tournament. And top 2 went to Singapore, and I had this whole plan. Like I had a certain money saved up. Top 2 gave a certain amount of money. I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go to Korea after this. Like I'm ready, man. I'm in good shape. I'm trying hard. I'm practicing Korean hours. I can do this. And then they made a tournament with 2 spots going to the World Championships and made it single elimination. Isn't that a fucking great idea? Isn't that a great idea? And then me and Day 9 were on the same side of the bracket, and he beat me. He was the only player I was afraid of going into that. He was the only one, because like his level of Zerg was like 50 times every other Zerg that was going to be in that tournament. So I didn't even really need to. TVZ was not something I should even been worried about until they announced a few days before the bracket and the fact that it's going to be fucking single limb. And it was like just. Anyways, that's some backstory for the video, guys. That was heartbreaking. I stopped playing StarCraft for months after that, and I didn't. Like 2006 was not a super duper good year for me. I did fine at WCG again and stuff, but like I felt like I had lost a lot of confidence and stuff because I had trained so hard, and it just all fell flat in that one moment in one matchup.
But some would say 2007 was your best year in terms of skill, right? Like you were going to that the best player.
2007,
right?
Oh yeah, like 2007 and 2008, like I was really getting good again. 2008, I was much better. 2007, I was in pretty good shape, but you tricked me. Jeff made basically it was Nyokin and I were kind enough to knock out every player that was good against Zerg because we were TBT experts. And then Jeff made like a Hydra Den in front. And then
Unfairness Android.
And he doesn't make mutas because he can't micro them. And I had no turrets, so I lost. And Jeff wins USA Finals 6.
What a good story that one is. Thank you, Dan. Before we get to the second hour, Greg, what is whatever? What's one of them for you?
It'd probably be the WCG. So I guess 08, the one that Tyler won. And I guess if you had to pick a moment, it's probably because I think I lost to Tyler first in the groups, and then G5 knocked me out, and he DT dropped me on Andromeda. So that's just like insult to injury. And this was when I had been in Korea for maybe a year, but it hadn't really fully kicked in yet. Like I was good, but not amazing, and I still had a lot of land jitters. And then you put that with, because everyone sees you in Korea and they're like, well, he'd better fucking win now because he's practicing full time in Korea. So there's a lot of pressure, plus just the pressure you put on yourself because like it was supposed to be a full time job. How could I fucking lose? And to make matters even worse, I don't know, most of the foreigners probably knew him as the manager, but he was like the go between CJ, my team.
I remember this.
Sean,
yeah.
what?
I remember.
Sean,
Go ahead. Yeah.
I ran into him the other day, Greg. He says hi.
No, so he's like an awesome guy and stuff, but he was the go-between between like the owning like majority sponsor and my team. So he was like a really important dude, and he spoke English and stuff. So he came along with, and he had friends in the area. So he came along with me, and he was like sitting behind me watching this white guy who's on his professional team lose to people who, in his mind, are complete amateurs. You know, they're foreigners who don't live in Korea. I really shouldn't have been losing to them. And so then I do lose, and I lose in kind of a shitty way, and just the confluence of events and expectations, and that was really bad.
I fucking remember that. Ouch. Yeah. Well, okay. On that note, we're in the second hour of the show, so thank you everyone if you've been tuning in. Thank you guys. The second hour I envision just like we're going to talk a little bit about StarCraft 2, but just kind of ask questions. And again, if you guys have some, let me know. Which is actually what ended up being the first hour of the show anyways, so there you go. Also, shout out to Cobra, who's the producer, by the way. Mid-show, he actually gave us some graphics. I don't know if you guys are seeing the stream, but it looks a lot better than just a Skype window. So Cobra is.
I like how you're still tiny at the bottom.
That's how it should. That's how it should be. I let my spirit, be the big picture. But my first question that I'm going to ask is one that's been burning through the ages of time, and I feel like with Greg here, we have to ask it. Greg, who stole the pork chop in the evil genius's house?
I really think it was Chris. I mean, I don't think anyone else would.
Yeah, correct answer. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that was up for debate. Like,
it's just it's one of those ones that to this day nobody knows. But you're saying Chris,
pretty sure.
Who's now the president of esports for Overwatch Boston, I believe it is.
What?
What does
Did
that
you know
mean?
That?
What is that position?
He's in charge of management. He's in charge of recruitment. He works directly with the fucking owning company, which is Kraft. They make macaroni. They live and they own the Patriots.
Oh yeah, Kraft macaroni and cheese. So Huck has the Blue Box Blues.
Huck
That's
might
good.
be the most powerful Starcraft 2 person in esports. That's amazing. Well, I expected more of an answer from that, but Greg just kind of. I should have expected Greg just naming who it was, and then we just move on, I guess. But I will say this: if you guys have questions in the chat, feel free to ask them. It's going to be a spam fest of that. Oh, I thought Chris tweeted me actually. He for sure will come back with a response to it at some point. But feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I'll try to pull some if I see them. But otherwise, we'll just. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask each other? Play host a little bit, Dan.
I'll have one in a minute.
You know what? Too late. I like the chat one. Who's the biggest jerk of the Brood War scene? Foreigner.
Okay, the actual how are we classifying jerk?
However you want.
Okay, so I have the answer. I've already had one. Mister's from Poland.
He's back, by the way. Did you know he's back?
Yeah, he is back. He's an adult now, so it's like Misters were cool. Whatever, we're all adults now. But he was not only a cheater and completely against fair play, but he was perhaps the rudest person I've ever encountered in gaming. Yeah.
Nice. Greg, who?
I feel like there has to be people who give him a run for his money. There were quite a few douchebags around.
Please, no one's as bad as him.
I think there were plenty of other cheaters and stuff.
Well, there was a lot of cheaters. Holy shit.
Okay, well, while you guys, we can come back to it, but I like this question from this really cool chick in the chat here, Anna. She says, how has being a Brood War Pro affected other aspects of your life? Because just leading it off for you, for me, I'll tell you, like, all of my ability to speak in front of the camera, all of my ability to basically do everything I'm paid to do in my life, I attribute to the exposure Brood War gave me. And in fact, as these guys will probably tell you, if you get them really drunk and honest, I actually wasn't that good at Brood War for the most part, but I got I gotta
hard to twist our arms into saying that.
Deep down, they're willing to admit it eventually, but you gotta pull back all the layers of pride. But Brood War put me in places like the reality show. Dan's talking about the USA Invitational he won. That was like my first trip to New York. That was when we watched Skew and Assem almost die because a homeless person just stared at them. And they decided, and do you remember that? We were in the subway, we were just holding the poles. This guy's staring at Assem, and Assem like looks back at him and kind of like laughs uncomfortably and looks around, and then the guy comes over in his face and says, "What are you looking at?" And Assem's like, I was just looking at you." Anyways, it's completely random. That was our first experience in New York. But Brood War helped make me a better person at speaking in front of audience and stuff like that. What about for you guys?
That was.
Oh, go ahead.
That was actually a good one. I wouldn't think like being comfortable speaking in front of people. I wouldn't have thought that, but I think probably a work ethic because I was lazy as shit as a kid, and up through being a teenager, and even. I mean, I guess kind of as a foreigner, I played StarCraft a lot, but I feel like that was just because I enjoyed playing it. But going to Korea really taught me to, buckle down and do what needs to be done, even if you really, really don't want to do it. In part because you didn't have any choice. It was like you do that or you're not going to be on the team anymore. But you do that for long enough, and then you kind of learn how to control it and apply that to other parts of your life. That's very valuable.
Yeah. You got anything, Tyler?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like nobody really wants to have, well, I don't know. At least for me, I feel like nobody really wants to have a super vanilla path through life. Like everyone wants to like do something a little different and like make their life unique in a way. And I just feel like the places Brood War has taken me, like the path it's put me on, the experiences it's given me, it's like anyone that I ever meet for the first time and, they get me talking about that, it's like I actually have something cool to talk about in my life experience. I don't have to just say like, oh yeah, I went to school and I got this job that everyone else has, and
I like that.
American dream vanilla kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like that's the biggest thing I've taken away from it.
For me, like it's kind of like exactly what you three said. Like for instance, I was not into public speaking. Like I'd be scared if I had to go in front of the class or something in school. But commentating StarCraft 1 took that all out of me, like instantly. Like the first time I went on stage was actually at BlizzCon. First time I had ever been in front of people.
Really?
Speaking. Yeah. The first BlizzCon I did in like 2008. And like I was nervous before I got on stage, and I got up there and started talking. I'm like, oh, this is fucking easy. And I've never felt nervous since, because it's like I'm confident speaking about Brood War. I don't know if anyone's noticed that. But yeah, that kind of, and then like because I was speaking about something that I feel completely qualified to speak about, I'm just like totally fine with public speaking at this point. So it helped me with that. But very importantly, like obviously I've like devoted my life to it, so that's a big thing, and I continue to do so and will continue to do so.
Yeah.
But the thing that like I kind of think it most did was, like I told that story about 2004. Like this taught me how to work hard. I have a sick amount of grit just as a person at this point. Like I can work my ass off and put the hours in at anything now because of Brood War.
I like that. I have one here that I like a lot. Cobra asks, did anyone like a Combat X or Rats Deezer ever show up to a live event, and how was it handled? This is very near and dear to me. One of the last WCGs I played for, I think it was 2010, there was this player who, again, as Dan said, everyone's growing up now, he's a good guy. His name was Joe Kim, and he was actually a legitimate hacker who there was like 4 qualifiers. And at this point in time, me qualifying for the finals was kind of a gimme. Like, I was absolutely one of the best, so it was never a question of would I, it was just win. But in 3 of the 4 qualifiers, I lost to Joe Kim in the most hackerish, like, stupidly hackerish kind of ways. And back then it was really frustrating, too, because you couldn't catch a hacker. They didn't stream. Replays existed, but you didn't get them from people. If someone hacked, there was no real way to prove it, and if there was a way to prove it, there especially wasn't a way to prove it to WCG, because they'd be like, well, did they admit to it? No? Well, then how do we know? And I'd be like looking at the game and be like, his fucking dropship is avoiding Scourge like he's flying through a goddamn asteroid field right now. But anyways, he knocks me out of 3 of them. He like eventually does qualify after beating me. In the 4th one, I qualify, the last one. I get to the finals. Who do I play in the first elimination round? Who the fuck does Jeff play? He plays Joe Kim, the guy that hacks but can't do it offline at the WCG. So you've never, as Dan has, this term's been forgotten, but it's called a banana grin. When Dan talks about a banana grin, that's when your face literally rips in half because of the size of a banana is your smile. I was so excited. I was like, guys, I'm playing Joe Kim. Get over, watch this. And we all go around, and I dumpstered this kid as hard as a person could possibly dumpster someone. So hard, in fact, that in the last game, he was the computer in front of me, I was the one here, so we were facing each other. I was up like, it was like maxed out supply versus his 45 or whatever. I grouped all my army, put it in the furthest corner of the map, attack moved from there to his base with the entire thing. And then with him seeing me, I put both my hands behind my head and I leaned back. And my army A-moved through him and destroyed him. That's how it got handled. We took care of that shit in the streets, y'all. So, did you guys have anything like that ever?
I have one like that. It was actually in StarCraft 2.
Yes. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead. Sorry. I got really excited.
Because I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it was SMI Spades.
Yep.
And it was before an MLG, I'm pretty sure. And I forget what happened, but somehow it came out that he was hacking. Like, he was caught conclusively. Everyone knew about it. It was a big deal. Like, and he was kind of an asshole anyway, so no one liked him, so everyone was happy to gang up on him. But he went to the NLG anyway, and I played him really early on in the bracket, and obviously he was just complete trash. He got destroyed. And I think I ended up popping up Mastinitis worms just all over his base to celebrate.
Yep.
So that was a lot of fun. Oh, and Combat X showed up to not WC, but the Toronto event that the NASL. He was just kind of like, he didn't play or anything. He was just kind of annoying, and he thought he was funny, but wasn't. Like, just, he's about what you'd expect that kind of person to be in real life.
I think the nicest thing you can say about him is that it's not an act online. He actually is like that. So it's
the douchebaggery is genuine.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Any other do you guys have questions or anything? What was the favorite cheese to pull out at tournaments? I think that's Tyler's gonna say Dark Templar Rush or maybe Mass Arbiters. Dan doesn't cheese, and Greg only played legit games. So
a bit of cheese.
I was a fan of 2FAC openings TVP. I didn't do them that much because I didn't think they were that good, but I like to pull it out every once in a while, and I really enjoyed playing them. It always just felt like you were climbing uphill, like you were so close. One bad mine explosion and the game's just over. So it was very tense to play, but I enjoyed them.
Yeah, and you could transition out of them so they weren't like too cheesy. I mean, I've known to pull out a BBS from time to time. You remember that tournament, that small like foreigner tournament that we had in Korea with all the foreigners the day after the main event where the Koreans wiped us up? Most people had hangovers and didn't go, but like, I think it was like, what was it? Round of 4 maybe? I was playing Sen, and like, I was just not in too good shape, so I just BBS'd him and knocked him out of the tournament, then lost to Beast, I think, or maybe it wasn't Beast. Strawlock. I lost to Strawlock.
And Sen was legit one of the best back then too.
Oh yeah, no, he should have won that easily. That should have been his $1,000. Instead, Strawlock got it.
I like this question from Streamer Girl because there's actually, we could talk about this for hours. What are some of the most bizarre and imbalanced maps you ever had to play on? Because there have been some.
Oh my god.
Monty Hall? That was always a weird one.
How about Lost Temple? Remember 6 o'clock on Lost Temple? Oh my god.
Do you guys remember Test Bug at MLG? Remember that?
Oh yeah.
The map that had 4 different
really
tile sets on the same map in 4 different bases?
Wasn't that the map where like MMA killed his own command center and Greg left the game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember the name. I remember the map now. Yeah. That one's kind of burned into the brain.
That's the only game I remember on that map.
He's like, that never happened. Tyler, what's the most imbalanced, stupid map you ever had to play on? In a competitive match, I guess.
Dude, well, my memory just doesn't work like that. Like, I can't remember map names at all, or even like really remember the maps. But I will just go ahead and complain. I'll complain about, in general, trying to figure out how to SimCity and PvZ. Like, my God, what a nightmare! Like when a new map came out, and I'm like, that choke looks pretty big. Like, am I even gonna be able to play PvZ on this map? Like, what am I supposed to do? And like the first 3 minutes of every PvZ is like, am I about to die? Like for no reason other than fuck this map maker? Like, so I always hated maps like that.
Oh, okay, I have a good one. Katrina.
Oh.
That map was the worst map. Like, that was such a terrible map for Terran. I literally met the guy who made that. I was having drinks with him one night and the other famous map makers in Korea. It was like after some big event. And they started just naming the maps, and someone's like, oh, I made this map. I'm like, that's a great map. Oh, that's a great... Wow, you're such a good map maker. And this guy's like, I made Katrina. I'm like, that's the worst fucking map I've ever seen in my life. It is so bad.
I actually always had a soft spot for Katrina because that was the first map I beat one of my teammates on, like when I went over to Korea. I played mech against, I think, NSP Action, and I beat him on Katrina. So I always liked that map.
I just Googled it because I can't remember anything, but I'm looking at it. There were a lot of
the spirally thing?
Yeah, you have a backdoor expansion, and the front door is like a really wide ramp, and it's spirally, yeah. But I remember some epic games.
It came out
well,
right
that's
after
the thing.
Katrina,
shitty maps produce great games. Like, this is back when we were players, but like, now as a more commentary personality, I love shitty maps because these guys dig out and try to survive off of. I'm like, wow, that's really good for them. And they're over there like,
good
fuck this! This is stupid! I'm like, this is great! For me, Heartbreak Ridge was one of those maps where God damn it. I think the magic number was like 10 tanks or something like that, and it was like, well, okay, here we go. And they just like preemptively make Valkyries or Goliaths because they know that you can't do anything on the ground because they lock up 5 bases and make infinity tanks. That sucked.
There's a lot of bad maps. We had so many maps in StarCraft 1. There's like over 200 professional maps, if I recall.
You had to, because otherwise, nothing changed in the game. That was actually kind of the funny thing about coming back to StarCraft Remastered is I was like, I remember Python. Like these maps, Fighting Spirit. Like these guys have been playing on it for 8 years then, 8 or 9 years. Maps are really old.
Yeah,
it's like Warcraft 3.
Yeah, and then some of those maps got weird too. Like we played it's in it now, Outsider even. Like some of those games where you're expected to mineral walk, and if you can't you can mineral walk, but if you there's some races that are better at it than others, like Protoss with a shuttle and Reavers, Corsair, and just any kind of cannons behind minerals at all on Outsider is one of the most frustrating games you'll ever play in your life. That's way up there. That's all that comes to mind, though, you guys. All right. There's a lot of questions. So some of these questions, I'll just say it out loud, but people are like, Greg, what's your major? What are you doing in life? We talked about that at the beginning of the show. You'll have to watch the VOD. But I also bring this up because Greg's smart. Greg's been staying off of Twitter, and he doesn't stream, so he doesn't get asked the same questions forever. Greg, I don't know when this happened, but I took on the torch of Machine. Like, Machine used to be Greg's keeper. Like, if you had questions about Idra, you asked Machine, because Machine's too nice of a guy to tell you anything other than the answers to every question you ever ask about other people. But now Machine doesn't do gaming anymore for the most part at all. He's esports at Twitch. So they're like, all right, well, who's the guy after Machine? Well, it must be fucking In Control. So they show up on my channel. Greg, if you want, man, you got some people out there. They're like, Jeff, hey, I know you're not going to like this, but can you please tell me what Greg's doing right now? And I'm like, I don't. He has a Twitter. Tweet at him, and they'd be like, that's not what I wanted to hear. Goodbye. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh. Dan, do your kids play StarCraft? Okay, I'm sorry I even read that. He has a daughter, and he has 2 kids that are basically fetuses. They can't play StarCraft yet.
Not yet.
Ari's old enough. She can start, right?
Ari, she watches StarCraft 2 with me and has asked me if I will teach it to her when she's older. And I said, yeah, we can start now. She's like, no, wait till I'm older, did it. I'm like, it is a hard game. You're right.
Very smart. One of the questions that keeps getting, I guess, do with this what you can. Can you speak about revelations in Brood War that changed the game throughout its time? I guess, what's some of your more favorite ones that you kind of...
Well, Bisu, obviously, as Noni said, is one of the biggest that there's ever been, because PvZ was basically unplayable for 7 years or something, or 8 years in the pro scene, and then Bisu came around, so that's definitely the biggest one.
What is it for people that don't know, I guess?
I don't know if I'd say that's the biggest one. What about Muted Micro?
Yeah, that's a huge one as well. But Zerg was playable before that, right? So
I don't think it would have been. I think if Flash came around and Muted Micro never happened, I think Zerg never went to ZVG.
Maybe. And they still didn't after that.
Yeah, well, I think eventually it would have turned into that for sure. Actually, one that I recall that's super duper old, right at the beginning of StarCraft 1, people thought vultures were terrible. Just terrible. And they, in that tournament that Gur won, the first, big world championship ladder thing, in the finals, he was against B-Blade Leader, who's now a commentator in Korea. He's a Korean Terran. And he was, utilizing spider mines early on to keep Terran back, or Protoss back, rather. And that was a really big moment. And those were actually just battle reports that would have, 10 screenshots and someone writing about what happened in the game because they sat in it because there was no replays. And I literally, that, helped me. And this was probably
you can't die from
1999, I guess. And
so cool to see
I would
lots
come
of
home from
old
school
faces
refresh,
again.
and when I
Hope
saw
you
that
all are
series in
doing
first
well.
I'm
Much love.
oh, you can do that. That's so sick. So yeah, that was kind of a big moment back, way back.
I mean, would you guys say that Uve kind of revolutionized macro? Because my memory of him was just watching games where it looked like he was doing a strategy that wasn't supposed to work, and his macro just made it work. And people, at least I was just like, what the hell is going on?
I feel like
we
he
need
was one
to
of the
figure out
first
how he
ones to...
makes so many units.
Yeah, he was one of the first ones to limelight that's actually something you can do. Because it was the Boxer era before that, where I feel like most people thought to be the absolute tip top, you had to have this ungodly good micro. And then Nada was something in between where he had good micro and good macro, but But the other swing was I Love Oov, where it was like, oh no, you can actually just be mechanically perfect with macro and win everything that way. He was one of the Bonzos. He was dominant.
And he was sloppy too. Like just watching him play, it was a sloppy game. But he just had so many units that it was like he had the biggest win streak ever, right? At like 17 TVZs in a row or something before July Zerg finally took him out. And
professional matches against the absolute best of the best too.
Yeah, it's only the best because he was the best. So yeah, that was definitely pretty revolutionary. That was the only time, by the way, I want you guys to know, at Oov's peak, that was the only time where I questioned, could Terran be too strong? Because I would watch him and I'd be like, who the fuck is ever going to beat this guy? It's not going to happen.
One for me that is kind of a smaller one, but and older. I thought Hold Lurker was a big revelation as well. That kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's even fair to say this, but for me, there's an argument to be made that it gave way a little bit to the SK Terran style, because Terrans for a little while there, like any meta change, could not move out. And I was so lucky to play Zerg at that time because, my God, was that fun. And it was, the things you did, too, because you just take 2 or 3 lurkers and put them in a random spot. The Terran, they'd be, like, walking over there. And as Terran is wont to do, they'd be like, you know what? I'm going to wait right here. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to macro up a little bit, maybe load up a dropship. I don't know. We'll see. And then I'll come back over to my army. And they would do that, and you just go, whomp, just all disappear.
Yeah.
And then they would come back and be like, you could feel the pause in the game. You could feel the hesitation where they're like, it was supposed to be. All right, where did it go? And then they would type at me something along the lines of like, fuck you, I hate you, you're a son of a bitch, and then they'd leave the game. It was great.
You're definitely right that was a turning point strategically, because I remember when that first popped out, that's when my TVZ really started to falter, because I'd want to go back to my base and I don't know, get a dropship, I don't know, come back later on. But that did force people to start moving out with science vessels more often, because we didn't have every timing down perfect like nowadays back then, so you could
this
could just
really,
be lurkers there. Oh shit.
This is super old school, but I wonder if Dan remembers this like I do, because this is actually just reminded me. It's such a good memory for me that literally my chest felt like elated. I was so happy to remember this. One time I was playing a practice game against Dan. Everyone's we were all watching each other. We're playing. Boxer had just done this move, so Dan, standing at the base of my ramp, fucking defensive matrixes one Marine, stims it, runs it past the lurkers, and then the rest of his army came to engage the lurkers, and I target fired all of his Marines that weren't the defense matrix one. And Dan, like, he lifts his hands off the keyboard. He's not playing anymore because it's just like hitting his army. And he's like, he just types in some. It was, I can't remember exactly, but he types in something along the lines of like, "You think you're pretty fucking smart, don't you?" Then he left the game. I don't know if that conveys as good of a story to you guys as it is, but it was like one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen, because I could feel Dan's happiness when he realized, oh, I can do it. Defensive matrix, and I'll run past. It looks so cool. Womp! Just didn't work at all. It was amazing.
You know what StarCraft 2 is really missing, especially in the age of streaming, is 1v1 play ops. Like, if we were streaming back then with the, all the USA guys and media guys doing 1v1 play ops, that would have been so popular.
Oh yeah.
It was like me and Greg were like the best players, and everyone else were also really good. And
we also had LZ Gamer in there.
and Machine. But yeah, like, we had good players, really good games, really good shit talking, and like whoever was playing would like go on another Ventrilo channel, and everyone who's obsing could like chat.
Just talk shit.
Yeah, that would have been a really popular stream, but Twitch just wasn't out yet.
No, I plan on Dan and I were talking about this when we're gonna start doing that again as well, and
together.
Hopefully together, and hopefully we'll get that spirit back and going. And when Tasteless is healthy in 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it is, he'll be in there. Because actually, it's only fair if I tell this story about, at Dan's expense. One of the worst memories for me that they all really liked a lot was, again, Tasteless was he was a little bit of a magical horse, like some kind of weird, like a unicorn of some sort. Yeah, he was like a unicorn. He didn't play with us all the time, but when he appeared, he was just like a leprechaun unicorn, just like, oh, let's play a game, darling. And then like entered into this weird the game was gonna be fucking weird. It was just you'd have scouts show up. There'd be dark.
People
Templar
didn't want to
dropping.
really play him too much either. It was, like he would just pop into the channel randomly. He was like, "LOL, hi guys, 1v1, let's play." And
Yes.
it's like, Nick, we haven't seen you for a week and a half. Like we have a thing going here.
And he
then
did.
a lot of times you'd be like, I don't really want to get cannon rushed or DT dropped or whatever. So like we have to be like, no, Jeff, just
Yep.
play Nick.
That was the attitude, and it was very. And I was, this is back then too. I was one of the better ones, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take care of him. We'll get Nick out of here. We played this goddamn kid. He like cannon rushes the first 4 of my bases. He's got both the islands. There's like scouts harassing. I'm sitting there like beads of sweat coming down my head because I'm like, I'm gonna lose to Tasteless. I'm gonna fucking lose to Tasteless here. And the chat, I was in the like they were all lolling and laughing, and like they would come into my venture and be like, Jeff, you're about to lose to Tasteless, you nerd. And I'd be like, get the fuck out, get the fuck out right now, you idiot. And like I'm actually getting heated. And Nick was so far ahead, he starts writing in pylons something like GG nerd in the middle of the map with like, and it was like 45 pylons, by the way, like not 9 or something. He literally exhausts his bank. Yeah, he's just like, he destroys himself writing this. And I end up coming back and winning, but it was pretty much only because he spent 4,500 minerals trying to make fun of me. But yeah, that was the time I almost lost to Tasteless, and it just about killed me.
Was that the one on Python? I think I remember that game.
Oh, yeah. And then, like, the next 5 games, G5 was scout rushing me because he thought it could work.
That was fun.
No, my favorite was when Nick and G5 played on Bakedu, and Nick had that cannon rush that he did every single game PvP on Bakedu because he was convinced it couldn't lose, even though it lost like half the time. But even when it didn't work, didn't he like start on the low ground and then hop up behind the minerals and fucking like 5 cannons?
Cybernetics core. It was
Yeah,
like the
yeah, yeah.
weirdest cannon
Oh
rush
my
there's
God.
ever been.
Good times. So I'm looking up for other questions here. What's some of your favorite moments from State of the Game? I know that all you guys were actually on that show at various different stages. I mean, Greg, you were a regular guest. What's some of your favorites?
When Dan, I think it was before the show, but we were on air. It was like the pre-chat thing. And Dan found the thing on Skype that covers your face up with like an animal, but it animates it. So like you could still see him talking, and everyone just lost their shit. I'm sure the video is on YouTube.
Yeah,
It is.
That
And
was
let me tell
the
you,
best thing.
here's the other perspective of that. You guys are laughing your asses off, and it's really, having a great time. I was like reading a Reddit thread or doing something else, so I wasn't really paying attention, and I didn't laugh. You wouldn't think it possible, but the level of hate I got for not laughing at what Artosis was doing was eye-opening. It was weird. I got a guy who wrote in a thread or something, he's like, you can totally tell that unless the attention is on Jeff, he doesn't like or enjoy anything. And I was like, there's too much logic in that. It sounds too close to like something that could be real. Holy fuck! It forever poisoned it. But yeah, the video's out there. I think it's in chat now. Someone Cobra just linked it. It's if you ever wanted to see, if you have some imagination for Artosis as like a fox, I think it is, then that's your go-to.
That's fun.
Dan, what about you? What did you like from State of the Game?
I don't know. Like, I mean, just having fun and talking about StarCraft all the time, and it was good to talk with you guys more regularly. That's what I miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not one particular memory. I miss towards the end when I was the only one watching all the pro games, and I'd bring them up, and you guys would be like, I didn't watch that. I'm like, okay, this is sick. All right.
Tyler, what about you?
Yeah.
You had some funny as shit moments, dude.
Yeah. I don't know. You know what just stands out to me is Day9 laughing.
Yeah.
the Day9 laughter. I really like too, and I don't know. I don't know how much the audience was like tuned into this, but like, because we all got to know each other really. I mean, we knew each other really well before we did the show, but like, we also like understood the dynamics of the show. I just liked when a little tension would rise, and I could tell like someone's tone would shift from like we're just hanging out to like I'm really serious about this shit. Shit got serious because I just like those are my favorite memories from like Brood War is like when people just got really serious. It's like not even about, it's not even like gameplay memories or like specific things. I just like when someone like you knew the fire was lit within their soul and they were about to like die for something, just
Yeah.
to prove a point. So
I think
That
that was one of
was
the best
magic
things
of
about
the
that
media
show.
event.
What's that? Oh, media event?
That was the magic of the media event, because like literally every night it ended in either me or Alex or Dan or Eric ready
Yes.
to fucking murder someone, and that was
Yep.
just how it ended. Someone logged off and was never going to talk to anyone else again, and then the next day we did it again.
Yeah, like every day G5 would remove various
Yes,
people
it
from
was
his
Eric.
every day. It was just crazy.
I was
And
just telling a story. It's so unsatisfactory in terms of public, but do you guys remember the time where Bryce, the only time he ever BM'd anyone, he asked G5 how to spell hot dog, and G5 like rage quit so hard. It was one of the hardest rage quits I've ever seen in my life.
Well, do you remember the sentence where, like, I was like, is this guy, like, completely bipolar? Because he started out laughing.
Yes!
Okay, there was this sentence, and the sentence was this long. I know that's not time, but, like, imagine, right? It starts, and it's like, of course I know how to spell a dog! And then it was like, the wrath of G5 was unleashed. At the start of the sentence, he was having a good time. He kind of had his G5 chuckle in there, and then it was just, like, so angry. Oh,
I remember.
God.
God, you're reawakening so many memories. We learned at that time that the angriest G5 is when he laughs, because that was hardly the first time that he laughed into anger. But we were like, oh shit, he's laughing. Shit's got real. It's really bad. Yeah, but no, media event was one of the funniest. I said this at the launch event too. Skew, who's like, if we can ever dig him up, he's he's at some shelter somewhere or something like that. We got to find him, but. That guy, his mind, he like, the media Terrans were angry, but Skew was like the Carnage to Venom. He was like, they were angry, but he would like torture you. He would drink, he would make you eat your own ball sack. Like he had a mind in a Venom in him that was a different level. And I told this story, but at one of the WCT qualifiers, it was him against G5, Terran versus Protoss. I play Zerg. There's nothing for me to benefit from watching this match. And these are my friends, so I join the lobby to watch, because I'm like, why not? What am I going to do? Skew stands up, looks at me, and says, if you don't get out of the game, I will rip your tits off. And I was like, I like, my mind doesn't even go to places like that to think of that. And I was like, yeah, I'll get out. And then he's like, and he was serious too. Like, there's no joking. He actually was like, I will physically hurt you. Yeah, anyways, Poke Bunny, by the way, in chat, really nice. He said he was 14 years old at the time back then, but he says, thank you guys, because he kind of looked up to us and wished he could have played with us too. That was kind of the cool thing, is the foreigner scene back then was really small, but it was really well known and tight, and it was on Team Liquid where you could basically say whatever the fuck you wanted because the community was so small. I got banned like 3 times, and I know Greg's been banned like 17 times.
They took away my report button, because they made report buttons. And what would happen, because back in the day when Team Liquid was like a really fantastic site, okay, it's still like an okay site, but back in the day, like, if you were better than someone at StarCraft, then your opinion mattered more. And that's when the forum was really good, because some idiot would come in and argue, and then like 5 pros would jump on and be like, what the fuck do you know? Like, get out of here. And so that was like really cool. But like, people would disagree with me on something, and I'm like, you just don't know. You actually don't know. You are C- on Icy Cup. Okay, you are garbage. And so I would just report them. Be like, is stupid reason or something like that. And I did it enough time that they specifically took away my report button. That was like the first time they had to do something like that.
Rich had to go into the code and change Artosis' ID on Team Liquid.
Yeah.
So speaking of youngsters and speaking of Team Liquid, I remember a guy named Superior Wolf.
I know. God damn it.
And he had a little game. He had the match of his life, the opportunity of his life against my friend Jeff and Control Robinson. And that was Team Liquid Attack, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so that was a show where, someone would come on and they would play against like random people, right? and you would have some of the matches would be the pro would be handicapped in some way,
Right.
or it would be like Team Melee, if you guys remember what that was. I'm sure most of the viewers don't, so I'll explain it real quick. It's like 3 people controlling one army, basically. So like one guy could macro, one guy could micro, and one guy could do random shit. So it was really hard to play against. Anyway, that was the show, and if you know a guy named Suppy from Starcraft 2, that was Superior Wolf, who had to change his name because I don't know if anyone can be taken seriously as Superior Wolf. They are better than the average wolf if they are the Superior Wolf. But I still don't know if that's enough to strike fear in the heart of opponents. But he did have an epic victory against In Control, and that
The
was
worst
that was a
part
pretty cool
about
moment.
that, Tyler, is, and for people like they know Suppy now, and I'm sure a lot of you do, but this is an old reference. Suppy now is this like he just recently got married, tall, handsome, deep voice, Asian kid, really fucking good at StarCraft, very respectful, makes a lot of cool posts. Back then, he was like 8, going on 2 years old, and his voice sounded like a child baby person, and it was like. He made a video, so he fucking... I think I was playing Protoss, which was my off race then.
Yeah,
he was Zerg. I was like trying to wall... I was sharing Tyler's pain. I was trying to wall in on Blue Storm or whatever it is.
Yep.
And Lings just run past, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna lose. And this is like the most pro versus amateur hilarious moment in time. Like, Suppy literally rolls out of his mom's like a burlap sack that she holds him on in her chest, and he's playing this game, and he beats me. And I didn't think much of it. But he records a video later giving commentary on beating me. And that's, if anyone has that video, they should put that in the chat. But then it's like him, like literally, so like this nerd here doesn't understand how to wall in, so I just make the most basic units, and I ate it. I had to, what are you gonna do? So he fucking knocked my lunch bag down and gave me a swirly. As like a 7-year-old. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you had to be told. I mean, I remember one time you offensive GG'd me. Do you remember this? This was.
You gonna tell the whole story? Are you gonna tell the whole story of why?
So, In Control GG'd me before I was ready to GG. Which, by the way, guys, don't ever do that. It makes you into a trash human being. Okay, you don't do that. And I had to lecture him. And it was a serious lecture, and at the end, I'm like,
see where Dan's taking this. Let me tell the full. Let me tell you the full story because it's a pretty good one. I can't remember the map. It was a space tile set map where you have minerals dividing the middle, like 3rd or 4th expansions, and if you mine that out, you're just in your opponent's base or whatever. So Dan, we have this epic, like 50-minute battle cruisers, tanks, mech, defilers dropping plagues so I can barely survive. Really back and forth, awesome game. Dan, at the last couple moments of the game, as it's beginning to realize in his Terran mind that he's like, wait a second, I'm gonna lose. You know what this motherfucker says to me? He says, too bad. He starts typing this in, or maybe it was on Ventrilo. He says, too bad I already won 35 minutes ago. I haven't been trying for the last 20 minutes. And then we play on for like another 10 minutes just to finish the game. I don't say anything at that point in time. I'm killing like his final base. And then I type in GG before he says anything, and he just like
Never do that.
He rage quits out. He drops out of the Ventrilo, and everyone's like, "Wow, that was quick." Usually, he waits till later to leave or whatever. And then he like comes back onto Ventrilo, messages me and says, "We have to talk." Pulls me into another channel, and he's like, "Look, there's a few things you just never do to me. You never, ever offensive GG." And I'm like. Dan, do you realize what you... And he's like, Jeff! And he like never raises his voice. And I'm like, oh shit, Dan's actually really fucking mad. And he goes, you never GG me ever again like that. And I was like...
Yeah, and I explained,
right.
If you're losing, some bad manner can come out. Your opponent won. They have the victory, right?
Yep. No, he's right.
You don't offensive GG, Jeff. I taught him a big lesson that day, I think.
I was one of the ones. Oh, look who's in chat, by the way. LZ Gamer does appear. Another funny one here too. Basically, LZ Gamer's crusade against the media Terrans was one of my favorites because LZ was always pretty darn good. A couple of results shy of like really breaking into getting accolades for how good he was. Like he was always a competitor at WCG, always did well, he was good on the ladder, trained really well, but one of my favorite series to watch was LZ Gamer against either Artosis or Skew specifically, because he had this thing where he would take one of their expansions, obviously not their natural, but maybe their third or fourth. He'd be like losing most of the game, but they would just not account for the fact that this nerd is on like 4 or 5 gases. And then Jake would come back and win some of these games. And the amount of anger you would see come out of Artosis and Skew was magical. It was
some of these bases, some of these maps, these 4-player maps, they have like 18 bases or something like that. So like there'll be one that you don't scout because you're like, well, if he took that, I could send a Marine and kill it. So that would be just too stupid to do. So like you just wouldn't scout that, and like he's got full drone saturation, fucking ultras start coming out of that hatchery to kill you. It's like, oh man.
One of my other favorite series to watch too, in part because it was so good. But yeah, Greg said it earlier. Most of our nights ended with G5 versus Artosis, which was always a good game, but G5 always won. And I think Dan.
What are you even talking about?
Oh, he did. Come on.
You are crazy. Oh my god. Oh my god.
One of my favorite lines comes out of one of the first ones of that, and it was on Blue Storm. I remember it very clearly. Dan's like CC first or whatever, or maybe after Rax, but it's a very fast expansion. The probe is harassing the SCV, and G5's probe micro was really good, which sounds weird if you're a StarCraft 2 person, but if you've been playing any Brood War at all and you understand how fucking mind-bogglingly stupid probes and drones are in particular.
Literally, there is a Protoss champion who has the nickname Devil Probe because his probe harass was that good, and it's like a game-altering thing. So this is like a real thing.
So G5 rolls up with a scouting probe in Dan's base. We're all in Ventrilo together. I think sometimes we did separate off, but sometimes we stayed in, because for this one I remember we were all there, and it was quiet, because this is the last game of the night, so some people really hate each other right now. And G5 starts microing. His probe is like hitting, backing up, hitting, backing. It's the fucking like LeBron. It's just this amazing probe right now. And Dan's like sending another SCV. That one gets down to 5 health. Sends another one. That one gets down to 5 health. He's like not able to finish this building. He's losing to a single probe. And I remember Dan, the longest sigh I've ever heard in my life, just. And he's like, "What is this? The OSL finals? The fuck are you doing?" And G5 had a really... Oh yeah, remember we actually did this. He had a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. He had a... What was that sound he made? I can't actually remember. Do you guys remember that sound? It was like... It was one of those... Like a very faint... Yeah, that's what it was.
It was like this weird squeak.
That was wasn't it the sound that Bryce made to like troll him back?
Yes.
God, we were all punks back then, but in a G5 game, it'd be quiet, and Machine's in the chat now, too. Me or Bryce would just go, into the microphone, and G5 would be like, he'd start laughing, because that's how mad he was. He'd be like, all right, who did that? That's really funny. Anyways, that's super obscure. There's fucking Bryce. We gotta... God, those memories. Anyways, anyone else have questions? Nobody else wants to pose them. If anyone in the chat wants to pose them, we only got a couple more minutes actually, because
winning strategy.
We're only gonna go a few more minutes here. But if anyone else has some closing questions, let's do it. I'll ask, but to stay on time, I'll wrap up too. And if a really good question shows up, we'll ask that. But otherwise, guys, I think out of respect to people's schedule here, let's go ahead and wrap it up. So. This has been great. Thank you all so much. I'll put out a little bit of information. People are asking if we're going to do this again. There's none planned, but I'll talk to the guys, and if this is something they enjoy and something we can do, maybe we'll do more, but there's no promises. If you're listening right now and you're not a sub, and you missed some of this because you're watching Game of Thrones, the VOD for this is going to go up on YouTube immediately after. It's free to watch there. If you are a sub and you missed any of the show, you have access to my VOD, so you can watch that. I just want to start off by saying thank you guys for taking the time. Tyler, like I said, he literally is going off of 3 hours of sleep because he came back from a bachelor party. Greg is closing up on finishing his degree and is starting a new semester tomorrow morning. Andy's 3 hours ahead of us, so this is actually late at night for him. And Dan is literally a 76-year-old father of 3 that found time in the morning to do this. So it's huge and awesome that they did it, so thank you guys. But to wrap up, let's start with you, Tyler. Thank you. Are you going to be... well, we kind of already asked these questions, but is there anything you want to tell people or have them check out or anything like that?
No, I don't really have anything coming up, so I just want to say thanks for having me on and for organizing this and, taking the initiative, because we all had so much fun at that launch party, and you were the one who you were like, well, I'm going to do something about it. We're going to have a show. We had a show, and you got Greg back. I got to thank Greg for coming on. Like, it's amazing for you to take some time and reconnect with the community. So that's really awesome. And Artosis, he's always here. What can I say?
I have nothing else to do. I appreciate that Jeff's like, oh, he has 3 kids. I'm at home alone for the next 2 weeks, man.
Oh, wow.
I'm just like playing StarCraft. I have nothing else to do. I'm always up for StarCraft shit, man.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. And actually, you reminded me, I can't go very far without saying shout out as well to Cobra, who's the producer of this. Cobra and me, to a lesser degree, because I kind of already knew this, we learned that dealing with Skype and putting on a show is actually just a little bit harder than building a rocket and sending it to the fucking moon. It's just a little bit harder. I don't want to give ourselves too much credit, but it's up there. So thank you, Cobra. Couldn't do it without him. But moving on, Dan, you're at home for 2 weeks, so you're going to be streaming. Do you have like a schedule or any idea where people can check that out and win, or just whatever?
Well, Twitch TV/Artosis. But yeah, this has been so much fun talking with you guys again. It's been too long. And I just want to say to the people who tuned in, they think that, they saw Noni and Idra, but it was just Haluk. So, just saying, you weren't dead.
Wow, I should have had you do that last, because I would just end the call right there. That would be the hardest end.
Turn it off, quick.
You guys already follow Dan on Twitter, but make sure and do that. Dan, you're just, again, about your streaming, though, you're just going to, whenever you turn it on, is when you're going to turn it on, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, I have GSL days that I have to commentate, but I'm just playing a bunch of StarCraft until everyone gets home, and I will be streaming beyond that, too. I want to stream or regularly, not like the types of hours, for instance, Jeff, that you put in, or like professional streamers. I'm a commentator, but I'll be streaming a good amount and trying to get some semblance of skill in Brood War back. And with that, the tech shift of switching into mech in the late game of TVZ, I think I can be good once again.
Have you seen that, Greg, that meta of TVZ right now?
Yeah, me and Rhett were actually talking about it before the launch event, about how we kind of always felt like that was the way it was supposed to be, if you could actually just get away with it. I always loved mech TVZ, and it was not quite good enough to make it work. I think it's kind of cool.
It's so good, and it's so difficult. I played Braddock today. You guys remember that name? Nyokin yesterday, and some of these games where we get to this point where I'm like, wait a second. He's on 4 bases. There's tanks everywhere. Everywhere I move, there's fucking spider mines. And I'm like, it's really hard. But, what's kind of good against it? Hydra Lurker. Look who was 10 years ahead of the curve! Look who did that! Man style. Anyways. Greg, anything? I mean, you used Twitter to hate on Trump a little bit. You talked about David Kim leaving. I think those are your last 3 tweets. You have a legion of fans that want to know anything. Give them something. Are you playing competitive Tetris?
I mean, I'm actually just super boring, so I'm kind of like protecting the community from finding out that they don't actually want to know anything about me.
All right.
No, I mean, all I do is like study and read, and I'm very boring right now, I promise. Just remember my Brood War career or something you don't want to know about me now.
There we go.
But yeah, it's weird ending a show and not having like a bunch of stuff to plug. I don't know what to say here.
I know. The EG part of your brain right now is like, how do I... But that can't be the
What's
end,
my sponsor list now? I forgot it. I don't know. No, but thank you guys for hosting this and for coming out. I watched the launch event, and it looked like a lot of fun. I wish I had gone just to like commentate and hang out. Like, it would have been too embarrassing to play. That's what they invited me for. But it was a lot of fun to watch.
It's
and
okay.
then to get to do this.
We're all adults now. It's okay.
Let me ask you this, Greg, because this is a question.
It'd be real bad.
I still have the shill in me, so I can ask these questions. But like, if there was an event that lined up okay with your schedule on a weekend, would you like to show up to a Brood War event and commentate? hang out?
I mean, yeah, sure. The problem is I don't even pay attention anymore. So, I mean, I guess the game is similar enough. Like, I probably still have thoughts to offer on it. So, yeah, I mean, if it worked out, sure.
Okay, so there you go,
But
guys.
only to commentate. I cannot play with zero practice. That would be my ego couldn't take it.
And then the hypothetical, and I know it's. Let me preface this with saying Greg's about to finish up his degree, and then he wants to go into a doctorate. So I think I already know the answer. But if you were on some kind of break, or you found yourself at a long weekend and you were playing Brood War, is that something that could happen in the future? Are you open to that? You want to play some if you get time?
I would like to play, but I couldn't play for just a weekend. I would either get really into it, which is bad for me, or I would not have enough time to spend on it, and I would suck really bad, which is also bad for me. So it's just...
Let's keep it in commentating then, guys. Nobody asked if he's going to play, but maybe Greg could commentate something at some point in time. We'll see. And then just for me to wrap it up, thank you guys so much for taking your time. Like I said, I went through all three of them. Joking aside with Dan, this started, like, I needed him on to check in at like 9 a.m. his time. And you know, he's without kids, so maybe he wanted to sleep in or not, but he's happy to be here talking. And Tyler and Greg, thank you guys so much. And then, like I said, maybe we'll do more of this in the future. We'll see. For those of you that chose this over Game of Thrones, thank you. You guys are awesome. For the Europeans that stayed up till 5 a.m. watching us, go to fucking sleep. Jesus Christ, what are you doing? But yeah, it'll be on YouTube for free to watch. We'll put it up immediately. Cobra's going to work on that. And that is it for the show. Just make sure and follow everyone on their Twitters and stuff like that. And check out Dan when he streams and myself. So thank you guys so much. That's it. Goodbye, everybody!
Okay. That was